Applications of triangle congruence. Yan ang pag-usapan natin ngayon dito sa ating matsayang talakayan. Kaya, stay tuned! Hello grade 8 learners! For today's video, we are going to discuss applications of triangle congruence. At the end of this video, you will be able to apply triangle congruence to construct perpendicular lines and angle bisectors. Let us have isosceles triangle. A triangle is isosceles if two of its sides are congruent. So let us see the figure. The congruent sides are called the legs. And the third side is the base. The angle opposite the congruent sides are called the base angles. And the angle included by the legs is what we call the vertex angle. Now, let's have Isosceles Triangle Theorem. It states that if two sides of a triangle are congruent, then the angles opposite these sides are congruent. So let's consider triangle ABC. So based on the theorem, the two sides of a triangle are congruent. So, ang given natin dyan, AB ay congruent to CB. So lagyan lang natin ng markings. Okay, then we have to prove that the base angles or the angles opposite these sides are congruent. So, yung angle A at saka yung angle C ay congruent. Yun ang ipoprove natin. Para ma-prove natin that the base angles are congruent, maglalagay tayo ng midpoint sa AC. And that point ay papangalanan natin na point M. And we are going to draw a line from point B to M. And we will call it as the midline. Take note that midline is a line from an interior angle to the midpoint of the opposite side. Now, let us name the congruent parts. So from the given, AB is congruent to CB. And AM is congruent to CM. Bakit? Because sabi natin, point M is the midpoint of AC. So mahati yung AC into two congruent parts. Okay? And then, we have BM is congruent to BM. Okay. O, itong dalawang ito, AM, tapos CM. Yan. Okay, then, BM is congruent to BM. Can we say now that two triangles are congruent? Okay, yes. Triangle ABM is congruent to triangle CBM by SSS congruence postulate. Dahil triangle ABM ay congruent na sa triangle CBM, we can now say that angle A is congruent to angle C because they are the corresponding parts of congruent triangles. The converse of an isosceles triangle theorem. The isosceles triangle theorem is written in if-then form. Now, we will just get its converse. It states that if two angles of triangles are congruent, then the sides opposite these angles are congruent. So let's consider triangle ABC. Mathematically, we can prove this by constructing an angle bisector. So mula sa angle B, magdodraw tayo ng angle bisector and it will intersect at segment or side AC. So we will label it as BM or segment BM. Now we will write the congruent parts. From the given, angle A is congruent to angle C. And that is given. And then, dahil nagkaroon tayo kanina ng angle bisector, yung angle ABC ay nahati sa dalawang angles. So, magkakaroon tayo ng angle ABM congruent to angle CBM. Okay. So, maliban doon, ano pa kaya ang congruent parts na nakikita natin? So, we have here BM is congruent to itself, or BM is congruent to BM. Okay. So, do you think the given information illustrated from the markings that we have is enough to say that there are two congruent triangles? Yes. So, we can now say that triangle ABM is congruent to triangle CBM by AAS theorem. And since the two triangles are congruent, we can now say that AB is congruent to CB because they are the corresponding parts of the two triangles. So we can say that corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Now, let us use those theorems to answer the following questions. First question, if MN is congruent to MR, so you are going to name two congruent angles. So, MN and MR ay makikita natin sa triangle MNR. So, ihiwalay lang natin yung ating triangle. Based on the Isosceles Triangle Theorem, the two sides of the triangle are congruent. And of course, on the theorem, opposite these congruent sides are the congruent angles. Okay, kaya the two congruent angles, we have angle MNP is congruent to angle MRP. Next question, we have if angle ONP is congruent to angle ORP, name two sides that are congruent. So, ONP or angle ONP at angle ORP ay makikita natin sa triangle ONR. So, hiwalay natin. Okay? So, if these two angles are congruent, based on the converse of the Isosceles Triangle Theorem, opposite these angles or opposite sides of these angles are congruent. So, the two sides that are congruent, we have ON is congruent to OR. We can also use those theorems in finding the value of x. Let's consider the figure. So in the figure, makikita natin that we have two congruent sides. Okay? Opposite these congruent sides, of course, are congruent angles. Kung ito ay x, of course, on this angle, we have also x. To find the value of x, magkakaroon tayo ngayon ng x plus 90 equals 180. Since the sum of the interior angles of a triangle is equal to 180. We have there x plus x. Okay, galing yan dito sa given natin dito. At dahil sila ay congruent, so lalagay din natin doon yung x. And then galing yung 90 because this is a right angle. Okay, right angle measures 90. Then simplify. So we have x plus x is 2x. Then combine natin yung 180 sa, o yung 90 doon sa 180. So we have 180 minus 90 is 90. Then divide both sides of the equation by 2. So the value of x now is equal to 45. Next example, you have to find the value of x. So since the given figure is an isosceles triangle, if this angle is 2x and we have two congruent sides, opposite these sides are opposite angles of these sides are congruent, so magkakaroon din tayo dito ng 2x. And remember, the sum of the interior angles of a triangle is equal to 180 degrees. So we have there 2x plus 2x plus 60 is equal to 180. Then simplify. We have 2x plus 2x is 4x. Then combine natin yung 60 doon sa 180. So 180 minus 60 is equal to 120. Then divide both sides of the equation by 4. So x now is equal to 30. For this time, we will use the converse of the isosceles triangle theorem to find the value of x. Based on the theorem, kapag ang dalawang angles na ito ay congruent, the sides opposite these angles are also congruent. Okay, kung yan ay congruent, magkakaroon tayo ng equation na 2x plus 6 is equal to 3x minus 6. Combine lang natin yung similar terms. So, inilipat lang natin yung 2x sa kabilang side and yung negative 6 sa kabila. So, we come up with 6 plus 6 equals 3x minus 2x. Then, simplify. 6 plus 6 is 12 and 3x minus 2x is x. So, the value of x is equal to 12. So, let's try another example. In the given triangle ABC, AB is congruent to AC. So, lagyan lang natin ng markings. AB is congruent to AC. The measure of angle B is 4x minus 45. And the measure of angle C is 2x plus 5. So, tingnan muna natin ang relation ng mga given angles. Meron tayong angle B at saka angle C. Okay, what is the relation of angle B and angle C? Okay, so based on the isosceles triangle theorem, angle B and angle C are congruent. Okay, so we will now have 4x minus 45, which is the measure of angle B, and 2x plus 5, which is the measure of angle C. So they are equal. So since these angles are congruent, then simplify. So we will combine 4x and 2x, then combine 5 and 45. So 4x minus 2x is 2x, 5 plus 45 is 50. Then divide both sides of the equation by 2. So x now is equal to 25. So, hindi pa tayo natatapos doon. Bakit? Because what we are looking for is for the measurement of angle A. Bago natin ma-solve yung measurement ng angle A, it's either hanapin natin yung value o yung measure ng angle B or angle C. So, let's see. Using the measurement of angle B. So, we have 4x minus 45. So, simplify lang natin or substitute lang muna natin yung value ng x na 25 sa variable x dito sa equation natin. So, we will have 4 times 25 minus 45. And that is equal to 100 minus 45 is equivalent to 55. Angle B now is equivalent to 55. Since angle B and angle C are congruent, the measurement of angle C is also 55. Now, we will have the sum of the interior angles of a triangle is equal to 180 to find the measure of angle A. So, measure of angle A is equal to 180 minus the sum of the two angles. So, 180 minus 55 plus 55. And that is 110. So, 180 minus 110 is equal to 70. So, therefore, the measurement of angle A is 70. Ano naman ang tinatawag nating equilateral triangle? Equilateral triangle, it is a triangle in which all three sides are equal. And in the familiar Euclidean geometry, an equilateral triangle is also equiangular. That is, all three internal angles are also congruent to each other and each angle measures 60 degrees. Okay, so paano nga ba yung tinatawag nating equilateral triangle? So, meron tayong 3 sides which are congruent. And, kapag ang 3 sides ng triangle ay congruent, yung mga tatlong angles nito ay congruent din. Okay, na ang bawat isa ay mayroong measurement na 60 degrees. Kasi sabi natin, the sum of the interior angles of a triangle is 180. Okay, kaya pag pinagsama-sama natin itong tatlong ito, magiging 180. Okay, so based on the definition of the equilateral triangle, let us solve for the value of x. Okay, sabi natin that all sides or the 3 sides of a triangle are congruent. So if we have on this side is 3x minus 1, sa kabila ay 11, so we will find the value of x. They are equal. So we have 3x minus 1 is equal to 11. Then combine similar terms. So magiging 3x equals 11 plus 1. And then that is equal to 3x equals 12. Then divide both sides of the equation by 3. So the value of x is now equal to 4. Ano naman ang tinatawag natin na perpendicular bisector? It is a line or a line segment that forms a 90-degree angle, and it goes through the midpoint on the opposite side. Okay, so let's consider the first figure. On the given figure, ang perpendicular bisector natin dito ay ito. It will intersect segment XZ. Ito yung segment XZ na in-intersect ng perpendicular bisector natin. Perpendicular bisector because it will form a 90 degree and it divides a segment or a side into 2 congruent parts. Kaya yung XZ ay mahahati sa dalawang congruent segments. So magkakaroon tayo ng XY congruent sa YZ. Okay, so let's now consider another one. On the given triangle, if we are going to have the perpendicular bisector, we will have MP is the perpendicular bisector. Bakit nandito siya? Because it intersects at the midpoint of ST. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, point M is the midpoint of ST. So, dito, kapag ang MP ay perpendicular bisector, meron siyang 90-degree angle dito, at mahahati yung ST into 2 congruent segments. So we can now say that SM is congruent to MT. Ano naman ang tinatawag natin na perpendicular bisector theorem? It states that if a point is on perpendicular bisector of a segment, then it is equidistant from the endpoint of the segment. So let's consider the given illustration. If PM, ito, ay perpendicular sa AB. Okay. So pag sinabing perpendicular, magkakaroon ka dyan ng 90 degrees. At ibig sabihin, itong MA na to ay congruent sa MB. Dahil kung ito ay perpendicular bisector, mahati yung AB into 2 congruent segments. Ano ang magiging conclusion dyan? When we draw a triangle, pag pinagdugtong natin yung point P and A, ito yon, at pag pinagdugtong yung point B at saka P, ito yon, these sides will be congruent. Ano naman ang converse of perpendicular bisector theorem? If a point is equidistant from the endpoints of a segment, then it is on the perpendicular bisector of the segment. So in the illustration, kapag PA ay congruent sa PB, anong magiging conclusion natin dyan? Then, okay, it is on the perpendicular bisector of the segment. Ibig sabihin yan, yung PM, magkakaroon tayo dyan ng midpoint na M sa pagitan ng, or sa segment AB. So, it will be perpendicular to AB. Makakapag-form ka dyan ng 90 degrees. And of course, masasabi natin ngayon na yung AM ay congruent sa MB. Because M is the midpoint and PM is perpendicular to AB. What is an angle bisector? It is a line segment that bisects one of the vertex angles of a triangle. So let's consider the given figure. In angle PQR, so this is angle PQR. So QS now is the angle bisector, meaning that PQR is divided into two congruent angles. So we have PQS or angle PQS is now congruent to angle SQR. So let's now have another illustration. In triangle ABC, BD is an angle bisector of angle ABC. Okay? Now, we can say that angle ABD is congruent to angle CBD. And ABC is equal to the sum of angle ABD and angle CBD. We also have the angle bisector theorem and its converse. It states that if a point is on the bisector of an angle, then it is equidistant from the sides of the angle. And its converse, if a point is in the interior of an angle, is equidistant from the sides of the angle, then it is on the bisector of the angle. So let us use this theorem on the given examples. Now, let us answer the given examples using those theorems. For number 1, given that line L is the perpendicular bisector of DE. So this is our line L. And this is the perpendicular bisector of DE. So meaning, magkakaroon tayo dito ng 90 degrees or right angle. Okay, since we have the given EG, okay, so ito ay EG, which is equivalent to 14.6. We will find the measurement of DG. So, anong mapapansin ninyo sa relation ng given at unknown? On the figure, we say that this is an isosceles triangle. So, they are the legs of the triangle. So, if EG is equal to 14.6, then DG is also equal to 14.6 because the legs of an isosceles triangle are congruent. Now, for number 2, if DE is equivalent to 20.8 and we have DG is equal to 36.4 and EG is 36.4, we will find EF. Okay, so ang given natin dito which is related to EF ay yung DE. Yung DE, yung kabuuan nito. Pero ang hinahanap lang natin ay yung EF. So, ibig sabihin, ang EF ay kalahati ng DE. So, we will have from DE which is 20.8. So, we will have the equation EF is equal to DE divided by 2. So, EF now is equal to 20.8 divided by 2, and now the measurement of EF is equivalent to 10.4. Next example, OM is an angle bisector. Okay? If angle 1 is 6x minus 10 and angle 2 is 4x plus 12, what is the measure of angle SON? Isa-isahin muna natin. Pag sinabi nating OM is an angle bisector, yung SON ay nahati sa dalawang congruent angles. At ito yung angle 1 and yung angle 2. Okay? So, angle 1 is now congruent to angle 2. So, they are equal. So, hanapin natin ang value ng x with this equation. We will now have 6x minus 10 equals 4x plus 12. So, to find the value of x, combine similar terms. Magkakaroon tayo ngayon ng 6x minus 4x and then equals 10 plus 12. So, that will be 2x equals 22. Then, divide both sides of the equation by 2. So, the value of x is equal to 11. Now, what we are looking for is for the measurement of SON. So, since OM is an angle bisector, yung SON ay nahati sa dalawang angles, yung angle 1 and angle 2. Okay, hanapin muna natin ang measurement ng angle 1 and angle 2 bago natin mahanap or ma-solve yung measurement ng angle SON. Okay, so if x is equal to 11, let's have the measure of angle 1. Substituting the value of x, which is 11, so angle 1 is equal to 6 times 11 minus 10 is equal to 56. If 1 is 56 or angle 1 is 56, then masasabi natin that the angle 2 is equal to 56. And again, to find the measure of angle SON, we will just to combine the measurement of angle 1 and angle 2. So we have now 56 plus 56, so you come up with 112. And that is the measurement of angle SON. And now it's your turn. On your paper or notebook, you are going to solve the following in the given figure. Ang gagawin lang ninyo is to apply the theorems that we have discussed. And that's for today, guys. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and share. Again, this is Teacher Dali na nagsasabing, practice makes perfect. Thanks for watching!